The name of the project is North Dakota Dairy Economic Impact Studies. And the project was actually brought to us by a couple different organizations that were interested in seeing what the impact would be if new dairies were constructed in North Dakota. As we learned and as we included in the report, in North Dakota, the dairy cows have declined since in the last 30 years. In the early 90s, there were over 300,000 dairy cows in North Dakota, and that has steadily declined over the last 30 years to where they are just about 150,000. And just recently, that number of dairy cows in North Dakota have increased slightly. And so they're wanting to continue that trend, and they've got some locations within North Dakota that are well suited for dairies. And so they were wondering in a couple of counties, what would the economic impact be if a few dairies were constructed? So what we ended up doing is we identified the counties as Ransom County, Richland County, and Trail County as the counties that there would be some additional economic activity that would come from construction of new dairies. What we did, because the dairies themselves that were coming were larger dairies, what we wanted to do is break that down into an increment of about 2,500 cows, so then that could be factored up to the appropriate size. So over the years, the dairies have gotten bigger, and just to capture economies of scale and to have access to crops, forage and water and other things that are necessary for dairies. So what we did is we did the economic impact studies for these dairies on 2,500 head increments, and we further broke that down between construction of the dairies as well as what the annual operations would be. And so when we were looking at this, we assumed that the construction of the dairy would take about a year, and over the course of the construction of that dairy, for example, in Ransom County, we estimated there were 124 jobs that would be tied to the construction of a dairy of 2,500 head size. And that 124 figure represents the purchase of materials that would need to be, concrete, steel, roofing materials, electricity and supplies, that sort of thing that would need to be purchased to build the dairies, but also it included the indirect purchases and the induced purchases that come from that initial economic activity. The indirect economic activity would be defined as the roofing material. They would need to go out and put an order in for steel roofing to be constructed. That would be considered indirect. Induced effects would be those that would come about because of people that work in the direct industries as well as the indirect industries, earning money, spending that money on nights on the town, paying their bills, all sorts of things that it takes to keep a household operating. And so the total jobs for Ransom County was about 124. The output, which is the value of all the sales, was about $19.35 million. And then the labor income, which is what actually shown in people's pockets, would be about $5.5 million. So we did that same thing for the other two counties, Richland and Trail, but we also did it at the state level. And at the state level, the economic impact was 121 jobs for a 2,500 head dairy, 8.9 million in labor income, 13.4 million in value added, and then 25.3 million in output. So that's what we did for the construction side of these dairies. And then once the dairy has been constructed, then obviously there's cows get moved in, they get fed, they get milked, they get cleaned up after, and the veterinarian comes around, helps the dairy cows stay healthy. And so what we did then is we estimated what the operation of that dairy would be over the course of 1 year, so annual operations. And when we looked at that, the jobs that are derived, we'll use Richland County as an example on this one. We found that Richland County, the annual employment, the average employment over the course of a year was 29 jobs. So that would include the people that work on the dairy, those that supply the feed, the purchase of the feed, and then the electricity, the vet bills, those sorts of things, plus all the people that work in those indirect and direct industries, circulating the money that they earn in the local economy. When we look at the annual output for dairy in Richland County, it's about $18.9 million of sales, the total sales, and about $3 million in labor income. And this, whereas the construction was one-time economic activity that happens, for a period of time, we assume 1 year, the operations, assuming that the business stays profitable, those economic activities will first be created in year 1, and then they will be sustained in years 2 through whatever the number of years that business remains in business. And so, like we did for the construction side, we also looked at what these impacts would be for the other 2 counties, which were Ransom and Trail. And then we also did it for the state of North Dakota. And just going kind of similar to what I did for the construction impact, the total jobs that's attributed to a 2,500 head dairy in North Dakota is 49, about $4.5 million in labor income, $7.5 million in value added, and $23.8 million in total output. And so, once these dairies are operating, they pay local taxes, they pay their employees, they're paying suppliers of various inputs. And so the main reason why we did this study is so that our client can, as they work through permitting and as they work through communicating what their plans are, they can have this sort of a document to communicate what the impact is economically by them being located in a local area. And so, in addition to doing this at a 2,500 head increment, they can then use those increments and factor those up. Say it's a 5,000 head dairy or a 7,500 head dairy, then they can use these numbers to become a lot more flexible in terms of applicability in communicating their message. So that's really what we did. They're out using the study now. We finished this a few months ago, and they're using this study to help make it just communicate what they're trying to do and be open and transparent with what their goals are.